All right. So you could see, oh, actually, before I do that,
So for that kind of detail, you would always go for the silhouette, like the outline first?
yes. And that's all, I'll go to that right now. One of the things I wanted to do, oh, how do I do this? It's like, damn, haven't you zoom in so long? Mhm.
What is it
Oh,
doing?
yeah, there, I'm trying to share the screen. All right, okay. So one of the things I want to show you is how to take an image and make it brighter. Is this recording? So what we have here,
And this is on Photoshop?
so this is Photoshop. Do people here have a computer with Photoshop on it? Do other people who don't, do y'all know how to download Photoshop? So there's a process to downloading Photoshop. So Google, what you do is you're gonna have to Google Berkeley Photoshop, something like that, and you'll find the page that it's kind of a pain in the ass process now because you have to.
Let me. So the Creative Cloud, yeah? Go to berkeley.edu. I'll put the instructions because I do
Okay.
this in all the other classes, yeah?
Okay, you got it.
Go to berkeley.edu on the search tab, put Adobe Creative Cloud. The first link will teach you and allow you to open your account if you don't have an active account. And the Creative Cloud allows you to have all of the different programs or applications that Adobe has available, which is a ton of amazing stuff, yeah? And one of them is Photoshop. Then you can download Photoshop. Since we're doing podcasts and stuff, you should also probably download Audition.
Maybe all this stuff. Get all this stuff. You got it for free right now. It costs money. Well, you're paying for it. So, really. Okay. So once you have your photograph open, there's a couple things I would suggest, right? One of the things you can do, and I'm not sure if this is going to record, but so pay attention here, is you have to go down to your image size, right? And you want to check how big it is. So this is actually 11 by 17 at 72 DPI. And by DPI, I mean the resolution. And so here, the trick is, how can you get your image as big as possible without it looking too pixelated, right? And so this is one of the things when you're looking for your images, I'm hoping y'all know how to use Google image search. There's a place where you can click to like the size, so it'll look for just large images. So you don't get the like 1:2 image and you're like, damn, that's a tight image, but it doesn't work because it's so tiny and you're not gonna be able to do anything with it, right? But sometimes, right, depending on the size of the image, right, you want it at least 8.5 by 11 at 72 DPI. Sometimes you can play with it and then you can go like, if it's, 10, let's say it's 8 by 9 or something like that, you can bring it up to 11. You can bring it up a few inches in size, right? So you can go from like 8 by 10 to 11 by whatever, the other side kind of transforms to. But you're not going to go like from 5 inches wide to like 15 inches wide. That's just going to look all pixelated. So those things to keep in mind when you're looking for your images. I'll put cancel here because this is a good size, right? It looks nice and clear, right? This is the thing that you're hoping to find an image that you can see, the pieces that you're going to need to draw, the eyes, the face, this, Las Zapatistas wear masks. So we're kind of like, halfway there in doing a drawing, right? You don't got to do the mouth. Mouths are hard sometimes. So here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna crop it in. And so to do that, right, you use this little tool. There's this little tool section over here. If you hover over each one of them, if you're like one of those people that likes to learn everything, right, you hover over each one, it'll give you a little bit of instructions and what the tool's for. If you want to do that, you can watch that little quick video, right? But this is the cropping tool. And so what you do is this helps you like crop the image, make it smaller, right? So that's what I'm doing. And here's the real magic right here. You go to image, and under image, you go to adjustments. And then you go to shadow and highlights. And shadow and highlights, boom, you see what happened right there? So I'm gonna unclick preview. You see how I brightened it up? So you can brighten it, you can play with this little slider right here, the amount, to like make it a little bit brighter, but that's good right there. Because we're also gonna go, so you click OK right there. And then now I go to adjustments and exposure. So you did shadow and highlights, and now you're doing the exposure. And so exposure, there's exposure and offset. And so you see this one makes it brighter. You don't want to blow it out. You want it to be where you can see where it's bright, but you see, you still see all the details. And then the offset kind of helps with the contrast. All right, I'll show you like when it goes all the way down, but you want to be towards the middle, have enough contrast. And this is a real nice image that I'm working with here, so it's a good one that I'm not too worried about. And then I'd click OK again, right? And I'm going to show you what it was, right? We go all the way back to the beginning, right? Right, it went from that dark to that bright. And so this is important. So when you have your photo printed out and then you have your tracing paper on top of it, you want to be able to see your image, right? And then, so now I'm going to make it, I like making it grayscale. And so I'm going to go to mode and grayscale. And then I'm going to go back to adjustments and shadow and highlights and make it even brighter. Just bring it up a little bit more. And then click OK. And you see, so you got a nice bright image. Again, going back to the beginning, look how dark it was. Look how bright it is.
And even like the face starts to pop out a little
Yeah,
bit more.
yeah. And that's the contrast, right? That's the thing, that's what I was saying in this dialog box. In exposure, right? Here you have your exposure, which is the brightness, and then the offset helps with the contrast to make sure that you have enough black and white. So you have, you can see what you're trying to draw. Make sense so far? Any questions? Right. Okay. So that is how to, adjust your image. Stop the share on there. Go back to this. Oof, this is a stressful part. You gotta start drawing. So you see how when you're able to do this, if you look at the screens, right, you can see like the more I plan it out, the better it looks. One of the things to be aware of, especially once you start doing your inking, right, because we're gonna do with pencil first, and then we're gonna use the Sharpie and the markers. This is not to call anyone out, right? But like I got the oils on my hand right now, especially if you're eating some tacos, right? You end up with the grease, right? No, but not even when you wash your hands, right? You always have oils. You always have oils on your hand, right? So when you're doing the pencil drawing, this isn't really so much of something you have to be worried about. But once you start inking, be more careful with not doing so much of this all over your image. Even like working with like this, try to be careful that you're not putting it down like that. Sometimes I like to like be off a little bit. Actually, like they sell these gloves. Sometimes if you want to have a piece of paper underneath like this, so you don't have your hand on top of it. They actually sell these gloves that I've got that like it's like half a glove. So you're not like transferring your oils, because what happens is oil, right? Oil and water don't mix, right? So when you have oils on your tracing paper and you start playing with your marker on top of it, you're trying to draw, it doesn't draw correctly. It kind of messes up, right? So, something to be aware of, to kind of consider. So, right. So the way I like to start with, that video you saw, Melanie, she went straight up with the markers, and I'm more like, I like to work with pencils, more forgiving. That's why you got erasers, right? You're going to erase a little bit here and there. And I like to work with these, starting the whole shape. And sometimes you're going to have to go like this, look underneath to see whether you can't see something, right? Because right here, right, like if you see, right here, there's this kind of line, right? That's part of the way the mask kind of folds down, right? So there's some things that you kind of have to think about right there, you know, right? So, and then also like if you look right here, these are things we start considering. There's a little bit more of a darker line right there. You see right here? Yeah. So I'm always kind of thinking of like, how am I gonna do this, right? So you see how I'm making like a thicker line there? And so some of it's just, you know, what you want to do is you don't want to do like a drawing that's just thin lines. You want to start like, how do I make these lines thicker? And you don't want to make one like um continuous line that's the same thickness. You want to go like thick, thin, thin, thick, right? Back to thin. That's like a little puntito, little point. And here start kind of from the thicker to the thin. And then over here, all of a sudden you're like kind of trying to create a shadow. And sometimes you gotta erase because like I went over the jacket right there. You can see that. So then I started kind of lining out, outlining the jacket. And sometimes I just start with the basic shape. Sometimes you gotta look underneath. What's that shape look like? Oh, I see. There's also a bandana up here, right? So I'm gonna outline the bandana. And sometimes what you want to do is see, that's why I put four corners, because then you can lift up one corner. You can see I'm lifting this one up. And then you want to go in here and then you want to draw on your drawing. I mean on your photograph, not your drawing. Kind of, and so you can see it a little more clearly. I don't know if you can see, you kind of see a little bit right there, but when you're doing it, you can see a little bit more. And here I'm just kind of doing the outline. And we'll come back to like the jacket. Sometimes I like to do some of these, the little details también also, so I can get those kind of, get a sense of what's going on here, right? I'll come back to some of that, right? And over here on this side, we'll look at the. Anybody have feeling like they can start working on their drawing? Yeah, so when you start working, right? And so if you're working, I'm kind of gonna be working, right? So it's kind of like a workshop where we're all kind of going. When I have important stuff to show you, right? Because I'm just kind of trying to outline. And sometimes you have to make decisions of what piece are you gonna draw? What are you gonna kind of leave blank, right? Like I'm gonna leave this blank, right? Because maybe later on you could put some color in there, right? But I'm just making like the zipper and the zipper is gonna be black, right? Any questions? What do you need? In that box. Remember, erasers are your friend, right? That's why I like working with pencil because you can don't always erase. You can always go back and forth until you get it right. Mm. And so you see, here's one thing with this photograph, it was cut off at the top, right? So here, what I'm trying to do is trying to figure out, like, I'm gonna try to like expand it. You have to kind of think, what would it look like? Like, I'm sure it has a little bolita at the top, a little like a little power puff thing going on at the top, but I'm not gonna put them. I'm just gonna kind of round up the head, right? And the thing with this is that we're trying to do more flat color rather than doing shading, right? So we're doing more of an illustration than one, a flat illustration than one that has a lot of shading. Right, so here you can start seeing I have the outline. Then I'll start doing the ins. Then once you start working for a while, you see the tip of the pencil starts to, you gotta like, get have your sharpener handy. So now, like, what I'm gonna start working on is the eyes. I'm gonna do this. And personally, I like to have more of a blunt pencil than a sharp pencil. It helps to make like this kind of thick lines that I like. How's it going?
They're like, it's gold, it's gold.
Going right. What happened? Or someone say it's smeared? Yeah, it's just. Yeah, I can't be careful sometimes. All right, so here's the thing. So, okay, everybody pay attention for a second.
Folks.
So, as I was saying, I did most of the outline of like the mask and then even the inside of the mask here. So I sharpened my pencil and so I could get into here, right? So with the eyes, I'm not sure of all the zapatistas that you're all gonna make. Are y'all making zapatista posters?
Yeah.
The zapatista posters, right?
No,
So,
they can make different ones
I
if they
mean,
want.
you can make different things. So, okay, I'm going with the eyes. Eyes are one of the hardest things to draw. Maybe let's see. Yeah, but well, I'm gonna start with eyes. So eyes,
Yeah, remember that the posters can be obviously inspired, Zapatista inspired, but also reflective of the different struggles. If it's like, no cierren el tianguis, it's about transnational farmers, whatever it is, yeah?
so one of the things I'm gonna do is on my drawing, I mean, on my photograph, sorry, is I'm gonna outline a little bit of the eye here. And although probably on the camera you won't be able to see as well. I'm trying to get a sense, right, of where the eye is and even like here. So if you ever look at eyes, there's, it's the eyeball. And there's all the eye stuff around it, and then there's this line right above your, like in your right below your eyebrow. So there's all these things you have to draw, right? So in here, like, I like to start with the line above the eye. You see that, right? This helps define the eye. So a lot of what you're doing here is helping define different pieces of the face, right? And so I outlined it underneath, so I have a little bit of a kind of a view of what's going on. So I like to outline first.
Everybody's like, I'm just gonna do the Dorito. Not have to worry about their eyes.
And this one, I don't know if y'all noticed, but he's also, the homie's looking to the side, which man makes it hard. Right, and so here, like, you have the outline, then I'm gonna do the eyebrow. I'm gonna fill it in. I always like to do these little sharp picos, little sharp pieces. Yeah. Give us a. And then sometimes, homie's got some age on him. So he's got these line going on under his eye.
Been through it.
So we gotta kind of play with the thickness and the lines. We got one eye. You see, any questions? I mean, I do eyes, all the time, so, But again, it's important to kind of define what you have going on underneath.
Yeah.
This is my secret, man. This is like right here, where I learn all my tracing skills.
And you also mark it with a marker?
Yeah, yeah. You can use one of the fine liners. I think like Pablo was asking, also going with the fine liner. Once you define it with your pencil, because remember your pencil's erasable, but this is a little bit more permanent, so.
Yeah.
Helps you get a thing. Like that. It's a good one. I'll do that.
Yeah. Then you could probably like, if you wanted to like add a star in the middle, in the top of it.
Yeah,
You could do something like that.
like on here?
Yeah.
Here. How's it going? Oh, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah.
And
I was thinking I wore a white shirt and I was like thinking like, fuck, and get all over me. And so here's the thing, here's another thing to kind of look up for. There's these kind of shadows that are formed by the way the fabric kind of folds. So you want to define those because it helps make your drawing have a little bit more life. Rather than making everything flat, gives it more dimension. So I do that and then I come back over here. And I like to add the stitching of the jacket too, and kind of that. Also with like the little shadows in here of the folding of the jacket. Feel kind of like do with the big fold, ¿cómo se llama? Adding little trees over here, little pretty little trees. Bob Ross. Should do that like a performance Bob Ross style. So if you look up for a second, you can see a little bit of what the illustration is looking at. Hard time. So let's see, how are people doing? Yeah, but you're paying. Yeah. But you're. Oh, that's cool. Everyone now is like trying to computer and I'm like. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, shit, maybe your, computer. So when you're tracking the new board page, it's in for now. Do you restart your, machine? Like, do you have like multiple applications? Restart it. That'll help. Save, yeah. Remember, you gotta restart everything. And all that stuff. Yeah, because what's going on, you have different, things that are turned on, and they're all taking memory. Oh, I thought that was.
Yeah.
No, but I've done
Ours are very
before, so-
similar.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
Did I like, oh, yeah, right, after their nose?
That line that you have, exactly, just make that line. Yeah.
Alright.
Because I wanted also to get it.
Never. I just don't really want. Oh, so.
Yeah, that's what he's been saying, that he can bring it out.
Like, put it on. It's hard, like, we figure it out. and that's what it is.
I wanted to. I'll make sure that we. Okay, I'm gonna make sure. And if you want. Dame un
Oh, okay.
From an LA.
Oh,
Like, yeah, and now this is, now she plays with them. But yeah, she used to, Monica used to play with like a space,
yeah.
Yeah.
it was just like a little, I think we lost that part. She plays with this one.
Oh, that would be nice, like one of those, Papistos in Spain.
Right, but I really liked it, it was like a really like heroic.
Yeah.
Like figure, and then actually, we talked about it, and she watched a video with her aimed, I think I sent it to her, and she really liked it. It was like a video that was like aimed for school age kids. So of course, right? So when they're talking about land, they're like, and also I didn't preview it, we like watched it together. But it was like, and if people wanna grow their own food and like have, we have things that they wanna have like land. And so when she talks about it, I wonder what she's gonna say tomorrow. She talked about it like, they just wanna grow vegetables. And the government knows vegetables. So it's really interesting how she, so for her, I thought it was a really cool way, like especially with, like guns and stuff, like explaining to her like, okay, why this hero, because normally we don't do the whole, except for she pointed out to me, I'm a different Star Wars, we're like, oh, there's lasers, like, but I'm like, those are lasers, so it's a little different, but yeah, we don't do the whole like the gun like hero thing, except for the stuff at the past, and I guess that. So yeah, it was kind of a cool way to like baby steps to show like this is Are you gonna have to die? She'll tell you about that.
Yeah, people also think like.
They're all accounted for in comments, they haven't moved.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I thought.
Yeah.
Like the line, like.
Very.
That's right.
I'm like.
And then. Like outline.
Yeah. Like, really?
You give it, right, because when you look at it, like, especially for something, it's probably a little light. So I think it's really nice, because you're able to get the curvature, you can tell that it's going up like that, right? The dark gray.
Oh, now it's like all faded. Oh.
Color on top, color and so. But there are I mean, sometimes the train has to break.
I didn't want to like get from my girl. Waiting for him. Have a. Yeah, dude, okay. And I did, well, you know, the way.
What am I doing?
Like, to do a hack. And it doesn't, even realistic, like, especially where you're gonna have to do more like the simplified writing. So this is the goal for your time, you know, and- Yeah,
Trying to think of which one I want to do. We think I should do, like I said, let them know like the best one becomes the cover of the V or something.
I always like to wait till the end.
That's what I'm saying, like the one that everybody voted.
Yeah. Democratic.
Oh, I
The eraser's your friend, the eraser's your friend.
Hold on, I'm gonna-
Oh, yeah.
Going somewhere there, Jasmine? Is that why you're hugging your backpack?
All right. Real quick. So I was gonna show, I thought this was a good example. I mean, a lot of this one is dark, right? But I was thinking like some people, you know, might have images with noses. And so here, like what I'm doing is, and there were some questions that I think, so it also help clarify. Like there's a lot of little details here that you don't necessarily need to create. What we're doing here is creating more like bold graphics, right? So when we're doing the mustache, here, like I'm just kind of doing an outline of it. And then later on in the computer, you can fill it in with like white, gray, or something like that, right? But we're just doing the outline of it. And so also, you know, with the nose, what we're gonna do is do like a basic outline of it, right? So here I'm doing the bridge, doing the nostril, and doing this, the little curly Q behind it, right? And so then start doing these outlines, right? But one of the big point I had here was, don't worry too much about the small details, right? We start to see how it looks, right? You're starting to get a sense of how it defines, right? We're doing more simple illustration here than like doing a full shaded kind of drawing here, right? We're doing things that are more graphic with less lines, right? And so that's a kind of the challenge sometimes, is that when you're doing something with less lines,
How would you
bolder-
do the hat, given that the hat has a shadow underneath?
Oh, let's do that. So, and this is a good example, right? Because what we're doing here is we're doing this hat, right? And so what I would actually do is I'm gonna do the hat like this. And I'm actually gonna do like this.
Mm.
And so I would leave this part white and then all of this, I'm gonna like just basically shade in.
Yeah, yeah.
And so part of it is where you're thinking about what is highlighted and what is dark, right? And so here, right, like a lot of this is, you're just gonna be dark, right? So how can you make your image look realistic with as little line as possible?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, that looks so pretty.
Questions, thoughts, issues? Feeling people respond. All right, y'all can go back to your thing. Don't keep going around. Really got real quiet and kind of real freaking me out. What do we go to the next question? So I'll get into that in a little bit. Yeah, so that's why in the next one, we're gonna take, another sheet and then we're gonna, trade it with the mark. Oh, yeah, yeah, so. Like this is part of, because there's so many little details. So like this, is, you know, not the text, right? So you have just the black and white without the gray and the red color, right? Then like, you work with that and you have to make it very trying to do and those are both. Yes. First is what you want to do. There's a way of tackling.
Are you going?
So. Like without, I think it makes it, there's nothing, there's no gray. The pattern is black. Like it's. And so with that, when you did that. What is something to do that would be more complicated than without you have like the black, those gradients. Black illustration, we bring in the Photoshop and make it.
You need to get some off the stage. It just doesn't-
Okay, and then we have like, blow it out.
We have. But yeah, sometimes. I did, like, you're able
Wow, it's like that. It's so.
Yeah, and then, but then there's like, you don't think that such as that, there's other programs. They, there's no, like, there's nowhere. Oh, we did a summer song, during COVID and like online. We're trying
Right? Like, that's good.
Oh, okay, yeah. But also, so like, I grew up more in the South Bay.
Other than the ad, you guys don't learn from
Yeah.
No, and then, you're talking about.
You have to do that for. You're, no, you're thinking about it. Like you got it, like 9, like 12, like, it should be about, it shouldn't, yeah, it shouldn't be like. Like, you have to.
She just.
Yeah.
No, it's just like.
Yeah. Yeah, like, yeah. It's, yeah, it's part, like, usually, like, say, in out by 7.5, 300
Really? I wouldn't know where to I like. Yes. How are they gonna travel? How are they supposed to travel? Do you want your own? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, well, I like, you really good at like, right? Yeah.
Like, how do we get?
No, we'll get it. So I'm gonna get it to that for a second, and then come back to that question. Yeah.
Well, actually, right. It was not.
Instead of making it, go to. Give it or have to make it happen. Like, there's image size, which makes something bigger or smaller, and the canvas is just the area that you have to work through. So you're making the canvas bigger, so you can think about it, the canvas as your workplace. You want that workplace to be bigger, but image idea. So right now, make your canvas bigger, make it like 2,000 by 3,200.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's there.
Well, let's see what he ask us to do. Let me see if he,
Yeah.
I think the next step would have been to like, fill it in with the markers.
Okay. Just in like.
If you wanna save it here, I'll bring it back next week.
Okay.
Don't worry about that. That's all I'll say. It's gonna be more just, a flat image, so we're not, like, later on, maybe when we're adding color, but that gets really complicated.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
You could make that, like, I think, go, like.
Maybe.
So, the way you have it is just what is, the darker color, make that black.
There's also a program where.
No, we're gonna create a way to archive. We're gonna buy a flat file, have it,
Draw it.
So that, okay.
so like all these things say.
Do hard, do so.
So I got one, was getting one that, yeah.
Like, there's, like, I wanted to make that.
Maybe another program.
Instead of trying to do all
As soon as you get it.
Okay. The other thing is there's a program where you can take art and check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why the library doesn't have access to be doing all that,
So,
so we wanted to create one
yeah.
where
even with
his
the-
classes and my classes
Yeah,
can
figure out
put
how to just-
like,
Yeah, but that's from the
prints.
students.
stuff that students, in terms of like. I mean, I would talk to the Access Library, see if they can catalog it. If we
Because the other one would be for the program where they check out art.
We just don't have, we don't have the capacity, and at the library, they have so much stuff. Like to try to catalog it, in Boston.
All right. I'll have to-
Thank you so much for everything.
Oh, yeah.
You're right there with Jackie's, yeah.
Thank you.
Real quick, okay,
Folks,
Thank you. All right. Ah. So, a couple people have asked, what's next, right?
not like they're done already.
Some people got to work. But, so there's a couple things, right? Again, with this kind of illustration that we're doing here, we're doing more of a simplified illustration. We're not trying to really deal with the shadow. So a big part of what we're doing is trying to figure out when you're working on your illustration is how do you take an image that is a continuous tone image, which means it has kind of like shading, and how do you simplify it to just a black and white illustration without shading, right? So part of that is kind of that's the challenge, right? It's like, how are you able to take it and simplify it in a way that you're just working with black and white lines, right? Black lines on white paper, right? That makes sense? Any questions on that? I'm hoping. So the next thing, right, is what do we do next, right? And so why do you have markers, right? And eventually, I think we're gonna need more of this tracing paper. I should have told you get 3 or 4. I'll be cheap and frugal. But, so what we're gonna do next, right? And I think some people have found this out that as you're drawing with a pencil, right, it starts to get smudged. And so with this one, what we try to do is we'll take another piece of tracing paper and we're gonna go and get our markers and just start tracing, do a whole other layer of tracing. Right? And so this is gonna be what we scan in. I'm not gonna do too much of this, but you get the point, right? And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically use the pencil illustration to then create our inked illustration. And this is eventually what we're gonna scan. And the challenge is gonna be finding, I'm gonna talk to Pablo about this, about how to scan these in, because I know there's one place where we can scan them in, but it's gonna require a lot of work, right? And so here's the thing, right? I was using the Sharpie to do these sticker lines over here.
How long would they, how big would they be? 11 by
We
17
can scan them in the,
at the upstairs?
yeah. Okay, so we can scan them in the ethnic studies office, but that's, it requires more wrangling everybody together. So again, there's the fine liner. The fine liner is what you use for like the eyes and all of the little pieces. And be careful because just like with, I mean, y'all know this, markers can smudge, right? So try to be careful and don't smudge it. I'm just kind of trying to do this quick. So you want to use, this one to just kind of outline and do some of the thinner lines. And like here in the eyebrow, sometimes with some of these finer lines, I like to go in here and outline it with the fine liner. And then you can go back in with your Sharpie and do more of the fill. Careful not to smudge. Right, you got an eye right there, right? So this is, where we're going, right? This is, you're trying to work with on your illustration, eventually ink it once you're done with the pencil drawing. And what we'll do after that is we'll scan them in. And once we have them scanned in, we can work with them in Photoshop. And so the workshop that I'm gonna do next will be a digital design workshop, which means that we'll go from taking your scanned illustration, cleaning it up, bringing it into Illustrator, and then adding text and color. Right? Questions?
Would you recommend, for instance, if we make it a certain size, they send me the images that they want to do? Like the ones that they really want to do for like the
Yeah.
plants? then we can print them up upstairs. Like if they're 11 by 17, right, roughly?
Yeah.
And then so that next week when they're doing that final draft, that's the one the
Yeah.
size that they want.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you have your image, send it to me, not the one that you're, like the one that you're actually going to do, yeah? So that I can print them out upstairs as a 11 by 17. So it'll look bigger, yeah? Or at least a little bit bigger, because it'll expand a little bit more from 8.5 by 11. So that next week, we use the tracing paper again to do the one that you're going to then use on Photoshop. Does that make sense?
And here's
And that
a,
way you could also work on if you're thinking of a different image, or like having done this, you're thinking about a different one that you want to do, you'll have an opportunity to think about that, yeah?
and here's something that came up, right? Because the question is, you want to have the image as big as possible, right? And you also don't want to just be looking at all the images on Google. Because then you're just gonna end up with a small image and you're gonna be sad. But my point here is, so when you're doing Google search, I'm hoping people know this, right? But if you click on this little tools icon right here, little button, what comes up is this little toolbar right here that has, so you can choose to look at any size. I'm like, nah, not any size, I want large. And so it'll basically filter the results by just the images that are large. Right? And so that'll help you a little bit, so you're not getting little tiny images that you're trying to blow up. Questions about that? Any questions? How are people doing? Are people excited? People psyched? You got your illustration going, a lot of cool drawings?
If you want to talk about it in office hours, we could talk about, like, if you wanted to add lettering and stuff like that, what you want to do, yeah?
Yeah.
But I like all the ones that I've seen or the ideas and the concepts.
But I mean, so the next part of this is that you all have to think about, what do you want it to say? You have the image. What do you want it to say? Look for some fonts. I'll send some resources to Pablo, like the font, some places where you can look for fonts. What kind of font you want to use, right? These are things to have for the next time that we meet up, that I come in, right? Because then I'm going to show you how to do all this stuff on the computer. And so you're not at that point, you won't necessarily be following along, but it's good, we'll record that so you can follow along once you're doing the thing for yourself, right? And that's when you're gonna bring your image together in Illustrator with adding some color and adding the messaging.
If you find a font out in the wild and online or whatever,
Yeah.
there's a way that Adobe actually can take that font and find what it is. So if Adobe doesn't have it in its list of fonts that it has available, you can input that font and it'll locate it or create it. So that's also a way.
Defense.
Have you used the app? Because there's a good, such as movie. In the world, that's one of them.
Yeah. It's able to identify the font.
The reality with that is that a lot of the fonts that exist out in the world cost money.
Well, can find someone. They never find.
You can find similar, take a picture of it and then go to Google free fonts.
Google free fonts.
And then you'll find the font, which is, I don't know why it's like the font, it's old school. But then there's also 1001 free fonts, and Font Space.
The font.
Sounds very urban.
The font.
The fonts.
They don't know what.
Yeah.
We're dating ourselves.
Yeah. So there's all these resources, right? Thoughts, questions?
All right.
Y'all excited?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to continue working, or at least, practicing, you could do so. If not, we can start wrapping up and cleaning up. You can leave your copies of the one that you did, unless you want to take it with you to work on it.
Yeah, keep working on it.
If you wanted to take some tracing paper, go ahead and take tracing paper as well. I'll bring some more next week. Or I'll have some in my office as well, probably tomorrow or Thursday. I'll buy a bigger
Yeah,
thing.
a couple more, yeah.
Yeah, I bought that at Michael's. 'Cause we-
Oh, okay. Oh,
I'll
cool.
buy the one that, I think the one that you showed me.
Yeah.
It was cheaper and it was more.
The text with.
This one is Elias Contreras, so, and they're sending, maize to, Cuba. So it's like a Saturday, they're sending, Zapatista corn.